being out in nature when I try to prepare for my summits always brings me back to the basic building blocks of quieting down, unplugging, and learning to listen and feel what at the speed of nature. And you might not understand that, but again, the concept is that when you're in a fast-paced, internet-based lifestyle, you'll go at that speed, you'll sleep at that speed, and then you'll probably be stagnant with limited physical movement at that speed too. If you are very knowledgeable and good at scheduling, then you might not have the diseases that most of my 30 to 40-year-olds have. But I think it's important to learn about how to balance life. Ancient healing systems like traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, yoga, all go back to balancing life. And that's what I'm doing now. Functional medicine is this practice that's been around for a couple decades, but is gaining a lot of movement and enrollment with MDs and DOs. I think most of my chiropractors, my naturopaths, my nutritionists have all utilized the concept, the testing, and the supplementation that the functional medicine embraces. But I think that's mostly because they didn't have the option to use prescriptions. And prescription medicine and Western medicine is very good at what we do, but you have to take it with a grain of salt and know when, after you control the disease manifestation, you still have to help the patient get back to wholeness, get back to movement, nutrition, healthy nutrition, and some form of grounding or spirituality. It's always cool to be in nature. Gives you an idea of what the beauty is outside of television, TVs, cable TV, car, radio, media. You can get caught up with all that stuff and forget the basic building blocks. And I think that's where disease comes up. When you don't have a regular movement practice, when you don't eat properly and you eat on the go, you don't have mindful eating, or you don't have any spirituality. And that can be interpreted a couple different ways, but when you don't have any reflection or quieting down or time for yourself or stillness like this, I think that the body doesn't heal up like it's supposed to. So when you have a 20-year-old, for example, that eats whatever he wants, doesn't have any side effects, doesn't gain weight, you look at that and say, I wish I could do that. And you wonder, well, how is that possible? Just assume that it might be because of a very high metabolic rate. But it sometimes can be translated into yoga terms where you have this thing called the chakras. There's the root chakra, there's the sacral chakra, there's the solar plexus or stomach, the heart, the thyroid or throat chakra, third eye, and then the crown chakra. All 7 of these chakras or energy wheels exist in everybody. And when they're flowing, when they're connected, when they're talking to each other, and when they're embraced and acknowledged, then usually life is good. You have somebody that doesn't eat too much, that sleeps well, doesn't seem too stressed out, fights disease properly, and that's great. The problem is when you have an imbalance, talking in energy terms, then one of those chakras won't work right. You'll have a blockage of energy, and usually, which is the cool part, you practice certain things and you get that energy to move again like it was before. That could be yoga poses, that could be pranayama or breathing exercises, that could be practicing nutrition with different forms of foods that stimulate those chakras to move. That's a practice of healing that's been around for 50, 200 years, just like Chinese medicine and acupuncture. It's hard to translate the concepts into Western medicine if you're not practicing it. It's a lot of energy medicine and follows the lines of Einstein, whereas A lot of Western medicine is physical, it's physiologic, that's very Newtonian. So we follow the practices of Isaac Newton. If you have an imbalance and you fix it, then you should return back to normal, right? That's physics, but that doesn't always happen. If I have somebody who has diabetes, because the pancreas doesn't work anymore, you give insulin in lieu, or instead of the pancreas making it, you give insulin, you would think that the diabetes goes away. The patient loses weight and starts to feel good, but it doesn't happen. And in many cases with metabolic syndrome, prediabetes or diabetes, you give the medicines to control the disease process, the patient still seems to have the disease and manifests like it. That could be in the realm of fibromyalgia, hypertension, elevated cholesterol levels, high BMI, metabolic syndrome, menopause, menopause, adrenal fatigue, whatever it is. I think that if you only go for the shortcut and you just take care of the symptom without working on the balance of the human being, then you don't let the human heal up. I think if you give building blocks, like in functional medicine, you give all those building blocks. My functional medicine doctors will use certain companies, standard process, pure encapsulations, orthomolecular, and then there are other ones out there that are all over the shelf or over the counter, and they are good, but the problem is you have to be able to translate what you need into what you can afford and prioritize. I mean, no question, if you have a deficiency of some sort, and that's found out, discovered by checking fancy blood tests to look for building blocks, look for hormones, look for the way the mitochondria are these little energy factories that are in each of our cells, the way the mitochondria are working, the way the adrenal cortex is talking to the brain, the way the brain is talking to the rest of the body with neurotransmitters, the way testosterone is being made, the way the stomach is making its digesting properly with hopefully the pancreas secreting. So really cool the way you can test all this stuff. You can test with blood, saliva, hair, stool, urine, and there are some pretty decent companies that do test that I rely on. DrRic, SpectraCell, DDI. Those are some pretty decent ways to find deficiency. When you find deficiency and you replete what's deficient, you would think that somebody starts to reverse disease, and it usually happens. I have somebody that is actually coming back to me after 6 weeks, and he saw a registered dietitian who practices functional medicine. He lost 20 pounds, lowered his cholesterol by 100 points, went from 300 plus down to 200 plus, and he's on his way. And he's actually feeling better and liking what he's doing. Not only with taking those supplements, which he's spending a lot of money for, and I think it's worth it for the current time, but he also enjoys the limited protein, the limited beef, the diving in of mostly a plant-based whole food diet. So that's the cool part. His body, he's recognizing that his body likes what it's being given. The caveat with just doing functional medicine is that if you only practice some form of repletion, it's pretty cool. I'm trying to avoid the sound of the roadway for the video. That's why I'm walking back and forth. But if you only practice repletion, then you'll probably feel really good, and you'll continue to feel good. Body will heal up because you're giving it its building blocks, and it'll function the way it wants to, what it was made to do. The stomach will digest anything. The adrenal cortex will secrete and turn off at night so you can sleep well. The testicles and the ovaries will make what they have to make. The pancreas will digest and give enzymes, and the brain will transmit and send messages via hormone and electric impulse. All that stuff will work. But like anybody who follows me knows, I think about sustainability. So if you're going to do that for a long time, wallet's going to be drained out. I can't afford that. I know patients can't. And sometimes that's where the beauty of stepping back and getting a coach, integrated medicine doctor, to look at you and say, okay, that's cool. You've been doing a good job. Now, let's go for the next summit. Let's redesign this, so maybe we'll tease out, drop a couple of neurotransmitters, maintain a decent nutrition practice, and see how you do. I always think there's ways to embrace grounding and spirituality, exercise and movement, and then nutrition. And those are the 3 building blocks and the 3 legs that I feel if are strong, you should be able to feel as you did when you were 20 and heal up properly. I don't care how old you are. I have 70-year-olds and 80-year-olds that are really still active. And if you look at Dan Buettner's work, there are people that are centenarians that are still putting up fences, holding social gatherings, smiling, being involved with the family. It's not just like the American 90 to 100-year-old that's a vegetable in a nursing home. No, I think there's ways, if you give the body what it needs, it'll go forever. So that's what I like about functional medicine, but that's also why I don't like about functional medicine. I think there's a balance, but whether you use those building blocks, you take those supplements, you do those fancy tests, or whether you use pure Western medicine, because that's all you can afford on the insurance, and try to control disease with prescriptions, but at the same time develop your own relaxation, nutrition, and exercise routine, there's a way for everybody to design or be designed so that they're successful. You just have to have the right person translate that information for you.